Hi, I'm Mark Rothman, Progress Coach. I help you achieve the dreams that you both desire and deserve. And thanks for watching my video on abundance. Stick around to the end because I talk about the importance of our scarcity context and changing that into an abundance context. I get to talk a little bit about the difference between our net worth and our self-worth. And I talk about making that change so we can live in abundance and really make our self-worth infinite. So stick around to the end because I give you some handy tips on how to do that. Let's get right into it. A couple years ago, I lost my Apple Watch. Not this one, obviously, a different one. I left it on the bench in the locker room at the boathouse where I scull. I made frantic calls to the office and to some of my friends who came into the locker room after me. I tracked down its last known sighting about 90 minutes after I left, and then it seemed to have just disappeared. It was a first-generation watch. I bought it as soon as they went on sale. And since then, I've enjoyed many of its features. I got the most benefit, for instance, from the exercise tracker. I used it to log miles, time, and heart rate when I jogged. I was training for a marathon, so having my workout history helped me see my progress, and I miss that when I don't have the watch. Watches aren't about time for me anymore. When I bought it, I knew it was a bauble, a luxury I could easily live without. And that's exactly why I bought it. I bought it out of a sense of abundance. When I looked at it, I was reminded I am living in abundance. But what is abundance? Abundance is the idea that there is enough, I have enough, I am enough. Maybe that last one caught you by surprise. Let me say it again. There is enough, I have enough, I am enough. To understand these three concepts, again, there is enough, I have enough, I am enough. Let's try a small thought experiment. Is it possible to live in abundance even if you've just been fired, you're not sure how you'll make rent, and let's say your cat ran away? Let me answer that question with another question. What is the difference between your self-worth and your net worth? We define our net worth objectively, the difference between what we have and what we owe, how much we have after we take away everything we have to pay out. I have a car, a house, some furniture, some money in the bank. I owe a mortgage, a car loan, some utility bills, and some credit card bills. When I add up what I have and subtract from it what I owe, I get my net worth. But how do I calculate my self-worth? Can I boil that down to an accounting formula? Of course not. But I can answer this question: what am I worth as a human being? Is my worth defined by the house and the car and all that minus all the bills? Or is there some intrinsic value to me just because I'm on this earth alive and breathing? Self-worth cannot be calculated. No formula will total up my blood and guts and bones, add to it the love I give to and receive from my family and friends, and multiply it by everything good I've done in my life, some of which, by the way, I may not even be aware of. What do we call values that cannot be calculated, such as the full value of pi, the amount of energy it would take to propel a rocket ship at the speed of light, or my golf handicap? Actually, I'm such a bad golfer, I believe a new math has to be invented to calculate my handicap, but I digress. We call these values infinite. Your self-worth cannot be calculated. It is infinite. So what happens to our thinking when we lose our jobs and may not be able to pay rent, lose our cat, or leave an Apple Watch on the locker room bench? We switch our focus from our potential and then we look instead to what we lack, what we don't have. We shift from a context of abundance to a context of scarcity. The framing story in our minds becomes a story of what we lack. Our infinite selves, our souls, live in abundance, but we start calculating our net worth in scarcity. Some of us may not need external events to throw us into a scarcity perspective. Scarcity may be our day-to-day context, a worldview deeply embedded in the story we tell ourselves about our lives. We may live in perpetual scarcity. When bad things happen, we use the events to confirm the overall scarcity context of our lives. Now let's return to the Apple Watch for a moment. Suppose we live in that scarcity, but we take a risk and we splurge and we buy an Apple Watch. And then we do a dumb thing and leave it in the locker room. What message might we give to ourselves in this scarcity context? It's going to be some version of, see, that's why I can't have nice things. The loss of the watch supports our ongoing story of deprivation. We take comfort in our affirmation of the negative, and we embrace all the frustration we feel in our daily lot. Our context determines how we live. It becomes much harder to admit growth or expansion into our lives if we live in a scarcity context. Rarely in that context do we see ourselves making the small but meaningful improvements in our daily lives we can all make. If we do attempt change and at some point we slip back into our old ways, our scarcity context affords us no energy to try again or to try something different or to even ask for help. We accept the impossibility of change as a universal truth. But if we change our context, we can change our lives. How could we look at the events of our lives from a context of abundance, the belief we have infinite value? We might be able to shape a narrative in which we view a job loss as a difficult but surmountable problem. We will get another job. Suddenly, our thinking opens up to include an optimistic future instead of staying stuck in pessimism. We now have the power to respond proactively when money grows tight. Perhaps we negotiate a payment plan with our landlord, or maybe we can't, and the landlord is a son of a bitch, so we ultimately give notice and move out. Along the way, we maybe get a new job, and maybe that job pays better, and soon we can afford to move into a nicer place. Maybe it even has a jacuzzi. Huh? How about that? 3 months later, we're in the jacuzzi, sipping a glass of wine, and realizing what looked once like lemons turned into lemonade. A man I know left home before he finished high school. He had virtually no money and remembers living in a motel and eating ramen noodles for days on end. He found his first job and over time worked his way up to become an operations manager of an outdoor equipment store. He led worker teams and became known as Mr. Can-Do and Mr. Fun because he wanted everyone to achieve their best and enjoy doing it. Now he runs a marketing consulting firm dedicated to helping his clients find the most abundant versions of themselves and their products. He doesn't often talk about his days in the motel, eating meals he bought 5 for $1 at the 99-cent store, but he credits those days for the success he enjoys now. It's nice that I've come so far financially, he says, but I'm really grateful I decided to live my life in abundance. That made all the difference. Let's be clear, living in abundance doesn't mean living carelessly or frivolously. Our net worth still matters. We may still have to budget our expenses. Our net worth may tell us we aren't ready to move to the new apartment with the jacuzzi, but where we live or what kind of car we drive no longer defines our self-worth. My watch did not improve my self-worth by itself. I used it as a tool to confirm my self-worth because I wore it as a tangible symbol of my context of abundance, of my positive inner story. And my ramen-eating friend chose abundance first, and from that found the energy to use the can-do and let's have fun too voice that draws people to him. Abundance unleashes energy. It fuels inspiration and creativity. When we see ourselves as abundant, we start looking for ways we can grow and areas we can expand into. I am large, we say to ourselves. I am capable of more. In my context of abundance, I considered replacing my lost Apple Watch. But before I gave up the search, I decided to complete one more down to the floorboards hunt. And I finally found it folded away in the extra fabric of the shoe compartment of my gym bag. I had a good laugh at my own expense. But the universe got the last laugh. I wore the watch several weeks later when I jumped off a cliff into a freshwater spring in Israel. When I bubbled back up to the surface, the watch was gone. The impact of my wrist on the water opened the band. I imagined the watch sank to the bottom, ultimately slipping between rocks several meters below the surface of the deep spring. That watch was gone. Later, walking back from the spring, I realized I had a profound choice. I could submerge myself into a scarcity context and focus on the now double loss of the watch. See, I could say, I was meant not to keep it. Or I could embrace the irony. Okay, universe, now you're just effing with me, right? I thought about all those years I lived in scarcity. clinging to both low self-worth and low net worth. I remembered how I took the first step in increasing my self-worth when I changed my context from scarcity to abundance. Then, choosing to demonstrate my sense of abundance, I found small opportunities to embrace my self-worth. These opportunities led to changes I could make for my net worth, which also grew. As soon as I got back to cell service, I called my son in New York, who would soon join us in Israel. I asked him to bring me a replacement watch. And when I strapped the new watch onto my wrist, I thanked the universe for my abundance. And maybe, just maybe, I heard the universe answer back, it's about time. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so. Hit like and definitely leave comments. I really appreciate being in dialogue and discussion with you. Check out my other videos on my channel, Mark Rothman Coach, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you haven't yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit the like if you liked the video. Definitely leave a comment. I really like replying and knowing what you think. And then you can find a link below to my website, markcoach.net. On Instagram, I'm Mark Progress Coach, and Facebook is Mark Rothman Progress Coach. And I'll see you in the next video.